August 17, 1964, Louisiana State Penitentiary, Angola. During soundcheck, Johnny Cash found a note tucked inside his guitar case that changed everything. "Mr. Cash, by the time you read this, I'll be dead. But please sing Swing Low Sweet Chariot for me tonight. David Tran, Cell Block D." Write in the comments, where are you listening to this story from? And what time is it right now? Cash ran to the warden's office. Tran was found alive, rope already around his neck. They cut him down and put him in solitary for his own protection. That night, when Cash took the stage, he did something unprecedented. He demanded they bring David Tran from solitary to hear one song. Angola was 18,000 acres of former plantation land, surrounded on three sides by the Mississippi River. They called it the farm or the Angola plantation, names that carried the weight of history. In 1964, it was the largest maximum security prison in America, housing 5,000 men, 80% of them black, most serving life without parole. The August heat was suffocating, 98 degrees with humidity that made the air feel solid. Cash had insisted on playing Angola, despite everyone's objections. His manager said it was too dangerous. The record label said it was bad for his image. Even other musicians who'd played prisons warned him away. Angola had a reputation more murders inside its walls than any other American prison. The year before, 37 inmates had died, officially from natural causes, though everyone knew better. But Cash had received a letter that haunted him. It came from an inmate named Joseph Williams, written on toilet paper with a pencil stub. "Mr. Cash, we ain't heard music here in 7 years. Some men been here 40 years and never heard live music. We're the forgotten ones. Even God forgot about Angola, but maybe you won't." So Cash came, bringing June Carter, Marshall Grant, and Luther Perkins. They arrived at dawn for the evening show, driving through gates that looked unchanged since the Civil War. The first thing that hit them was the sound of work songs floating across the fields where inmates picked cotton in the crushing heat, the same fields where slaves had worked a century before. The sound check was scheduled for 2 p.m. in the prison chapel, a wooden structure that doubled as the only gathering place large enough for performances. As Cash opened his guitar case to tune up, a folded piece of paper fell out. The note was written on the back of a commissary receipt in careful, precise handwriting. Here's what nobody knew until decades later. David Tran wasn't supposed to be at Angola. Tran was 28 years old, a Vietnamese immigrant who'd come to America as a child in 1950, fleeing the First Indochina War. His family had settled in New Orleans, where his father worked as a shrimper. David had been a straight-A student, headed for college, until the night he defended his sister from an assault and killed her attacker. The jury didn't care about self-defense or protecting family. They saw an Asian man who'd killed a white man, life without parole. He'd been at Angola for 3 years, and every day had been hell. The only Asian inmate in a prison divided between black and white, he belonged nowhere. He ate alone, worked alone, survived alone. The guards called him Charlie or Gook, even though the Vietnam War hadn't fully started yet. The inmates simply called him the Chinese, though he always corrected them. "I'm Vietnamese." The night before the concert, Tran had made his decision. He'd saved pills for months, traded cigarettes for rope, written letters to his family that he'd never send. He planned to do it during the concert when the guards would be distracted, when his death might go unnoticed for hours. But then he'd heard something that made him change his plan slightly. Stop. This detail is crucial to understanding what happened next. Another inmate, Robert Preacher Hayes, had been teaching Tran to play guitar. Hayes was doing life for killing a man in a bar fight, but he'd found religion in prison and now ran informal church services. He'd taken pity on Tran, the lonely Asian kid who sat in the back of every service, never singing but always listening. "Music will save your soul," Hayes had told him. When everything else fails, music remains. Tran had learned 3 songs. One of them was Swing Low, Sweet Chariot, which his mother used to hum while cooking, though she'd learned it from black neighbors in New Orleans, not from any church. It reminded him of home, of the smell of faux simmering, of his sister laughing, of life before Angola. When Tran heard Cash was coming, he made a desperate decision. He would put the note in Cash's guitar case during setup, then go back to his cell. If Cash read it and ignored it, he'd go through with his plan. If Cash sang the song, he'd take it as a sign to live one more day. It was a gamble with his life as the stake. Cash read the note and felt his blood turn cold. He'd lost friends to suicide. His older brother Jack had died in an accident, but Cash had always wondered if Jack had seen the saw coming and chosen not to move. He'd contemplated it himself during his pill-addicted darkest days. He knew the weight of that decision, the moment when death seems like the only door out of pain. He grabbed the note and ran. The warden's office was in the main administration building, a quarter-mile from the chapel. Cash ran in the August heat, his black clothes immediately soaked with sweat. He burst into Warden Charles Murray's office without knocking. "There's an inmate about to kill himself. David Tran, cell block D. You have to stop him." Murray, a tough 60-year-old who'd run Angola for 5 years, didn't ask questions. He grabbed his radio and called a code. Guards ran to cell block D, while Cash waited, pacing, praying. 15 minutes later the radio crackled. "We got him, alive." Tran had been found standing on his bunk, rope already in place. He was seconds from stepping off when the guards burst in. They cut him down, put him on suicide watch, in solitary standard procedure. He'd be kept in a strip cell, nothing he could use to harm himself, checked every 15 minutes. "He's safe now," Murray told Cash. "You saved his life." "No," Cash said. "Not yet. He asked me to sing him a song. I need to do that." "That's impossible. He's in solitary, suicide watch. No visitors, no privileges." "Then bring him to the concert." Murray laughed, but it wasn't funny. "Mr. Cash, you don't understand. We have 5,000 inmates. If I make an exception for one, especially one on suicide watch, I'll have a riot." "Then I don't play," Cash said simply. The room went silent. The concert had been planned for months. Inmates had been on good behavior for weeks to earn attendance. Canceling would likely cause the very riot Murray feared. "You're putting me in an impossible position," Murray said. "That boy put a note in my guitar case, asking for one song before he died," Cash replied. "He's going to hear that song. The only question is whether you help me make that happen, or whether I have to do it alone." What happened next has been reconstructed from multiple witness accounts and official records that were sealed until 2014. Murray made a calculation. He'd dealt with Johnny Cash. Before, the man was stubborn as a mule when he believed something was right, and Murray had read Tran's file, knew he was a model prisoner, except for this suicide attempt. The kid had never caused trouble, never joined a gang, never fought back even when attacked. One song, Murray said. He sits in restraints, surrounded by guards. Any sign of trouble, he goes back to solitary, immediately. Deal, Cash said. The concert was scheduled for 7 p.m. By 6:30, the chapel was packed with 800 inmates, the maximum the building could hold. Another 1,000 stood outside, listening through open windows. The temperature inside was over 100 degrees. No air conditioning, just ceiling fans that barely moved the thick air. Cash took the stage at 7:15, after the prison band had warmed up the crowd. He was still shaken from the afternoon's events, but he opened strong with Folsom Prison Blues. The inmates loved it, shouting along to every word. But Cash's mind was on David Tran. Here's what the official records don't mention. During the third song, I Walk the Line, the back door of the chapel opened. 6 guards entered, surrounding a small figure in prison whites. David Tran, hands and feet shackled, was escorted to a chair that had been placed at the very back of the room, separated from other inmates by a barrier of guards. Most of the audience didn't notice, but Cash saw him immediately. Tran looked terrible. His face was swollen from crying, his wrists bandaged from where the rope had cut them. He kept his head down, unable or unwilling to make eye contact with anyone. Cash finished I Walk the Line and paused. This was the moment. "Gentlemen," Cash said into the microphone, "I need to tell you something. Today, a man in this room tried to take his own life. He's here now, and he asked me to sing him a song. I'm going to do that, but I need something from you." The chapel went quiet. Suicide was common at Angola, but it was never discussed openly. "I need you to help me show this man that his life matters," Cash continued, "that he's not alone, that even in this place, he's seen and valued." An inmate in the front row stood up. "Who is he?" Cash hesitated, then decided on truth. "David Tran, the Vietnamese brother in cell block D." A murmur ran through the crowd. Everyone knew who Tran was, the isolated Asian kid, who ate alone, who nobody talked to, who existed like a ghost in their midst. "The Chinese?" Someone called out, not mockingly, but with surprise. "He's Vietnamese," Cash corrected. "And he's been alone here for 3 years? Every single day, alone. That kind of isolation can kill a man's soul. Today it almost killed his body too." Wait, what happened next changed everything about Angola prison. An older black inmate named Samuel Big Sam Jefferson stood up. Big Sam was a lifer, been at Angola since 1938, commanded respect from everyone. When Big Sam talked, people listened. "I seen that boy every day for 3 years," Big Sam said, his voice carrying through the chapel. "Never said a word to him. None of us did. We let him walk alone, eat alone, exist alone. That's on us." He turned to look at Tran, who was still staring at the floor. "David Tran," Big Sam called out. "Look at me, son." Tran slowly raised his head. "You ain't alone no more," Big Sam said. "You hear me? From today on, you got 800 brothers. We failed you before. We won't fail you again." Other inmates started standing, turning to look at Tran. Men who'd never acknowledged his existence were now seeing him for the first time. A white inmate named Billy Thompson, known for his racist views, stood up. "I called you names," he said to Tran. "Ugly names. I'm sorry, that was wrong." More apologies followed. Men admitting they'd ignored him, mocked him, contributed to his isolation. It was unprecedented. Hardened criminals, publicly acknowledging their cruelty to another inmate. Cash watched this unfold with tears streaming down his face. June Carter, standing at the side of the stage, was openly sobbing. "David," Cash said into the microphone, "this song is for you, but it's also from them, from your brothers." Cash began to play Swing Low, Sweet Chariot, but not the upbeat version usually performed. He slowed it down, turned it into a lament, a prayer, a promise. His voice cracked with emotion as he sang. Then something extraordinary happened. Big Sam started humming along, providing a bass undertone. Other inmates joined in, creating layers of harmony. Soon, 800 voices were singing, all directed at one small man, shackled in the back. But the most shocking moment was still to come. As the song reached its final verse, David Tran began to sing. His voice was thin, barely audible at first, but it grew stronger, and the other voices dropped away to let his be heard. He sang in accented English, sometimes mixing in Vietnamese words his mother had taught him. It was raw, broken, but absolutely honest. When he reached the line, "Coming for to carry me home," his voice broke completely. He sobbed, shoulders shaking, while 800 inmates watched in respectful silence. Cash set down his guitar and did something that violated every prison protocol. He walked off the stage, through the crowd of inmates who parted for him, to the back where Tran sat shackled. The guards moved to stop him, but Warden Murray, who'd been watching from the side, held up his hand. "Let him." Cash knelt in front of David Tran, this young Vietnamese man who'd been ready to die just hours before. "David," Cash said, loud enough for everyone to hear, "your mother didn't teach you that song so you could sing it at your own funeral. She taught it to you so you could sing it through your pain and come out the other side." Tran looked at Cash through tears. "I don't belong anywhere. Not in Vietnam, not in America, not here. I'm nothing." "You're wrong," Cash replied. "You belong here with these men in this moment. You're not nothing. You're the reason 800 men just remembered their humanity." Cash stood and addressed the room. "I want every man in here to make me a promise. From today forward, David Tran doesn't eat alone. He doesn't walk alone. You see him, you acknowledge him, you treat him like the brother he is." "We promise," Big Sam said immediately, and others echoed him. But here's the detail that changes everything about this story. Warden Murray stepped forward. He was carrying a guitar, a beaten-up acoustic that had been in the prison storage for years. "Mr. Tran," Murray said, "I've read your file. Before you came here, you were studying to be a teacher. You wanted to teach music to children." Tran nodded, confused. "Preacher Hayes tells me you've been learning guitar, that you have talent. So here's what's going to happen. You're coming off suicide watch, effective immediately. You're going to be transferred to the trustee dorm, where you'll be safe, and you're going to teach music to other inmates. We're starting a music program and you're going to help run it." The chapel erupted in applause. It was the first time Angola had ever had an official music program. Tran was in shock. "I don't understand." "It's simple," Murray said. "You tried to die today because you thought you had no purpose. I'm giving you one. These men need music. You're going to help them find it." Cash walked back to the stage and picked up his guitar. "David, this next song is one you need to learn. It's called I Walk the Line. It's about staying on the right path, even when darkness surrounds you. Every time you feel like giving up, I want you to remember this song and remember this night." For the rest of the concert, David Tran sat in the back. No longer shackled, Murray had ordered the restraints removed, surrounded by inmates who'd positioned themselves as his protectors. Big Sam sat on one side, Billy Thompson on the other, a black lifer and a white racist, united in protecting the Vietnamese kid they'd all ignored. Cash played for 2 hours, well beyond the approved time. Murray let it continue. Something was happening in that chapel that transcended a mere concert. It was a community being born centered around saving one lonely man's life. The last song Cash played was Will the Circle Be Unbroken. He invited anyone who wanted to sing to join in. David Tran stood up, walked to the front, inmates clearing a path for him, and stood beside the stage, singing with his new brothers. When the concert ended, something unprecedented happened. The inmates didn't leave immediately. They formed a line to shake David Tran's hand, to apologize, to welcome him. 800 men, many serving life for murder, showing tenderness to someone they'd helped push to the brink. Here's what happened in the aftermath that nobody knows about. David Tran not only survived but thrived. He became Angola's first music instructor, teaching guitar to hundreds of inmates over the next 15 years. The program he helped create became a model for prison rehabilitation through arts education. In 1979, after 15 years at Angola, Tran's case was reviewed by a civil rights organization that had taken interest in Asian American prisoners. They discovered prosecutorial misconduct in his original trial. The jury had never been told about his sister's assault. Evidence of self-defense had been suppressed. His conviction was overturned. But here's the remarkable part. When offered release, Tran initially refused. "These men saved my life," he told the lawyers. "I can't abandon them." It took Big Sam himself to convince him to leave. "Brother, you go out there and tell the world about us. Show them we're not animals. Show them what happened here." Trang was released on March 15, 1979. At the gate, over 100 inmates had gathered to say goodbye, a violation of protocol that Murray overlooked. They sang "Swing Low, Sweet Chariots" as he walked to freedom. After his release, Tran founded a non-profit organization called Music Behind Bars, bringing instruments and teachers to prisons across Louisiana. By the time of his death in 2018, the program had reached over 10,000 inmates. But the story doesn't end there. Big Sam Jefferson, the lifer who first stood up for Tran, became a leader in Angola's music program. He learned to play piano at age 67, composed gospel songs that were recorded by the Angola Prison Band. When he died in 1985, still incarcerated, his funeral was attended by the governor of Louisiana. David Tran flew in from California to speak at the service. "Big Sam saved my life with 5 words," Tran said at the funeral. "You ain't alone no more." Those words did what no medication, no therapy, no intervention could do. They made me believe I was worth saving. Billy Thompson, the racist inmate who apologized, underwent a complete transformation. He joined the prison's first interracial gospel group, became literate with Tran's help, and spent his last 10 years teaching tolerance to young inmates. Before his death in 1991, he wrote to Cash, "That night you made me see that Chinese boy. Excuse me, Vietnamese. As human, you saved my soul. I'd spent 20 years hating people for how they looked. Tran taught me to play guitar with patience I didn't deserve. Every chord I learned was a piece of hate leaving my heart." Warden Charles Murray retired in 1970, but maintained that the 1964 concert was the turning point in Angola's history. "Before that night, we warehoused men until they died. After that night, we started trying to rehabilitate them. It started with saving one suicidal immigrant and became a revolution in how we saw our purpose." Cash himself was profoundly changed by that night. In his autobiography, he wrote, "August 17, 1964, Angola prison. I went there to sing songs. Instead, I witnessed resurrection. David Tran was dead. When I found that note, dead in every way that mattered, except physically. By the end of that night, he was more alive than most free men. 800 condemned men brought him back to life, with nothing but their voices and their promise not to let him be alone. If that's not proof of redemption, I don't know what is." Cash corresponded with Tran for the rest of his life. Their letters, donated to the Country Music Hall of Fame after Tran's death, reveal a deep friendship. In one letter from 1995, Cash wrote, "David, you think I saved your life that day, but the truth is, you and those men at Angola saved mine. I was losing faith in humanity, in the power of music to change things. That night showed me that music can literally bring someone back from the dead. Every prison show I did after that, I did thinking of you in the back of that chapel, singing through your tears." The guitar warden Murray gave Tran that night is now in the Louisiana State Museum. It's scratched, worn, with DT 1964 inches carved into the back, but it still plays. Musicians who've tried it say it has a unique sound, mournful but hopeful, like it remembers its history. In 2014, on the 50th anniversary of the concert, Angola held a memorial service. David Tran, then 78, returned to speak. The chapel was packed with inmates, many of whom had learned music through the program he'd started. 50 years ago, I tried to die in this place, Tran said. But Johnny Cash, and 800 men I'd never spoken to, decided I should live. They sang me back from the edge. Today there are music programs in dozens of prisons because of what happened that night. Thousands of men have found hope through music because Big Sam Jefferson stood up and said I wasn't alone. He paused, overcome with emotion. If you're sitting here today thinking about ending it all, thinking nobody would care if you disappeared, look around. These men care. I care. You are not alone. You will never be alone. If you just reach out, put a note in someone's guitar case, ask for help, someone will answer. The current Angola warden reported that suicide attempts dropped by 60% after the music program was established. Men who might have given up found purpose in learning instruments, writing songs, teaching others. But perhaps the most powerful legacy is found in a letter discovered after Cash's death in 2003. It was from a young inmate at Angola, written in 2002. Mr. Cash, you don't know me, but I know about you. I'm where David Tran was in 1964, a lone Asian Korean, ready to end it. But the music teacher here, an old man named Marcus, who learned from Tran, told me the story. He said if I could hold on one more day, play one more song, something might change. I held on, I played, and just like with Tran, men I'd never spoken to started seeing me. I'm alive because of a chain that started with you reading a note in 1964. Thank you for starting that chain. The note David Tran tucked in Cash's guitar case is now framed in Angola's music room. Below it is a plaque that reads, on August 17, 1964. These words almost became a suicide note. Instead, they became the birth certificate of hope. At Angola, music saved David Tran. David Tran saved others through music. The circle remains unbroken. Every year, on August 17th, Angola holds David Tran Day. Inmates perform Swing Low, Sweet Chariots, and remember that isolation can kill, but community can resurrect. They remember that 800 voices singing together can call someone back from the edge. In his final interview before his death, in 2018, David Tran was asked what message he wanted to leave. Tell them that on the worst day of my life, when I had a rope around my neck, a country singer, and 800 convicted killers decided I was worth saving. If God can use Johnny Cash and murderers to save a suicidal immigrant, then there's hope for everyone. No one is too far gone. No one is alone unless we let them be. The last song played at Tran's funeral was Swing Low, Sweet Chariot, performed by the Angola prison band via video link. 800 current inmates sang along from the chapel where it all began. As the song ended, they held up a banner. David Tran, 1936 to 2018. He walked the line. We walk it still. This is the story of the night Johnny Cash turned a suicide note into a symphony of redemption. The night 800 condemned men chose to save one they'd helped condemn to isolation. The night Swing Low, Sweet Chariots became not a funeral song, but a resurrection hymn. The night loneliness died at Angola, and community was born. And it all started with a note in a guitar case, a sprint to the warden's office, and the radical belief that every life, even one that seems worthless to its owner, is worth saving. That's the concert that became an intervention, the performance that became a promise. The night music literally saved a life, and that life went on to save thousands more. Now you know what really happened when Johnny Cash demanded they bring a suicidal inmate to hear one song, and 800 men sang him back to life.